Ahead of the first film's release, director Christopher Landon talked about the possibility of a sequel, focusing on why Tree went into the time loop, stating, Ahead of the first film's release, director Christopher Landon talked about the possibility of a sequel, focusing on why Tree went into the time loop, stating, Ahead of the first film's release, director Christopher Landon talked about the possibility of a sequel, focusing on why Tree went into the time loop, stating, Ahead of the first film's release, director Christopher Landon talked about the possibility of a sequel, focusing on why Tree went into the time loop, stating, The whole idea for my sequel is actually already in this movie. Actress Jessica Roth, in an interview in 2018, stated that while most horror sequels retread the original, Landon's pitch instead elevates the movie from being a horror movie into a Back to the Future type of genre film, where the sequel joins us right from where we left off. It explains a lot of things in the first one that didn't get explained, and it elevates everything. The sequel was officially announced, with filming scheduled to begin on May 18, 2018, for Christopher Landon's sequel, Happy Death Day to You.
Did you know Anne Frank was blind and deaf?
The Helen killer.
Excuse me?
Anne Frank was in the attic.
Oh.
Let them fight.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, June.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chills and Thrills, and Happy Death Day to You with Chris and Connor here, and that is the film we are doing today. We are doing the second in the Happy Death Days, which is Happy Death Day to You. This was a first-time watch for Chris. So Chris, what did you think of the sequel?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely, in general, kind of less of a horror movie than the first one. This one just felt like it was more kind of going into a different kind of genre, more of like an adventure comedy almost. Not really adventure, but more of like a light sci-fi comedy. The horror and murder aspect was not as strong of a part, kind of carving out its own little niche here, but it was still fun. I'm not sure I preferred it to the first one, but it was still a fun movie.
It definitely, this one gets into the little more of the sci-fi aspect with like going into like the first one we just had the time loop, and in this one we got like a multiverse and a time loop and like multiple of like different characters and characters living lives that like having memories that they don't remember because it's not like the true life they have lived and stuff. So like I do like the path that they went with this one, because a lot of sequels, it's like wash, rinse, repeat, like things like that. And it's like, okay, well, we've done this before. And this is one sequel that you can go into thinking, okay, well, we're going to have another like time loop with Tree and she's going to get killed over and over again. And then you wake up with Ryan in his car and it's like, okay, well, we're immediately picking up right after the first one. And I like that a lot. And then with Sissy, they're like sci-fi experimental machine that they have in the film. It just takes a weird turn, and it's something you didn't expect coming off of the first one. So it's nice to see something completely different.
Yeah, they do a good job of not doing the obvious, and they twist it up a little bit. Multiverse stuff always kind of gives me a headache, but they didn't just run back the original one with a different character, with the same character over again. They went into this more wild evolution of the concept, so that's fun. That's unique, and I like it.
And I like how this film, I believe it was 2 years later roughly, and they brought back like even like all like the little characters, like the Stop Global Warming girl and like kind of like the goth guy in the beginning. Like they brought back all those same characters and kept them the same. And there's so much that went into this that they had to like get specific little details to continue and pick up right after that first and original film. That it was fun. I wish, there have been talks about a third one for a while. They're going to do it. They're not going to do it. This one didn't make enough money, but it made good money. And So I would be excited for a third one, but we'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and it you know it this movie does an interesting thing that I like that sequels do sometimes, which is take characters who are either minor or supporting roles in the first film and expand them and elevate them more to like a main character or main cast kind of a role. A big kind of mainstream example is that you have kind of Ian Malcolm, who's not the main character of Jurassic Park, but he's a key character. And then in The Lost World, he is the main character. That kind of thing, like that's kind of unique and engaging. It kind of makes the world feel more real, because not every person is going to be the center of every sort of major event that happens. And it's refreshing to see a situation where a character who is a relatively minor role in one story then is a more pivotal role in another story. I kind of like that in sequels, and so seeing all of the kind of minor characters from the first one kind of get elevated to more significance in this one was fun to see.
It was, they brought, like I said, they brought back everyone. They brought back the teacher and his wife Stephanie, and they Tree, Danielle, Carter. I mean, Ryan played a very small role in the first film, and he's a bigger role in this film.
Yeah,
And we get
Ryan
a double of
specifically
him.
he was very much a bit part in the first film, just a comedic little button, and he's a main character in this one, and I like that a lot.
Absolutely, continually improving. And I mean, I like the entire cast in this film, especially, like I said, everyone we get from the first film. So this is fun. This is going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, and as far as the third film goes, it feels, 6 years later, it feels like the moment has kind of passed. But I will say I would be up for one if they did it.
See what else they could kind of come up with. We've done the time loop, we've done the multiverse, and what else could you do?
Yeah.
I'll give you a little background, as always, for Happy Death Day to You. Happy Death Day to You is a 2019 American science fiction black comedy slasher film written and directed by Christopher Landon. It is a sequel to the 2017 film Happy Death Day, and it again stars Jessica Roth, Israel Broussard, Sergi Sharma, and Steve Zissis. The film again follows Tree, now trapped in the same time loop of a different iteration in her world. And Jason Blum again serves as a producer through his Blumhouse Productions company. And this film was released in the United States on February 13th, 2019 by Universal Pictures. Like its predecessor, the film received mixed reviews from critics who praised Roth's performance as well as the film's shift to a more sci-fi tone, with noting it was derivative of the first film. Like we said, it's completely different. Besides the time loop stuff, this is its own story.
Mm-hmm.
I think this, clearly when these came out, I didn't see these. You've seen the first one in theaters. I didn't see the first one, I think, until after this one was released in theaters. So, I mean, I'm sure this would have been a fun, like, Valentine's Day date, film to see, something a little different. But
yeah, the first one had major date movie vibes, and this one kind of had it too. Not too scary, not too funny, not too serious, not too silly, and just kind of like have a night out at the movies. Maybe not the kind of movie you're going to rewatch all the time or anything, but it seemed to be made for that kind of teenage date night kind of a film.
yeah, just, get out, have some popcorn and a soda or whatever you're going to have at the movies and have a fun time with the crowd. I wish I would have seen these in theaters. I think I would have had a good time with them. All right, why don't we go ahead and continue on with the good stuff, get right into a trailer, get a plot synopsis read off, and we'll get the numbers, the fun facts, and all our favorite characters for Happy Death Day to You.
Sounds good.
Dude.
Oh.
I am tripping right now. I feel like I've totally lived through this day already.
Deja vu?
Yes.
The day reset when you died, right?
Yeah.
I might be able to help with that. I died 11 times. I was stuck reliving the same day over and over again until someone wearing a baby mask murdered me on the night of my birthday. Turns out it was my roommate, Lori. I kicked her crazy ass out a window and killed her, which broke the loop. But now I'm living the better version of my life.
You okay?
No.
Oh, hey, you're up. I folded your pants for you.
No way.
Dude, did you hit that or what?
I don't believe this. It's Monday the 18th again.
Go.
Stop global warming.
Go. Go.
Same day, same day.
Go, shorty. It's your birthday.
I thought it ended the loop, but I'm back. Oh my God. Everything's different. This time, it's coming after all of us.
If you don't reset the day and try again, they're dead for good, aren't they?
So I'm gonna have to die over and over again to save all of you.
I mean, I guess you could just reset the day yourself.
Genius idea.
Okay,
Okay, let's do this.
They like me, I want them to love me like they love pop.
If I don't stop the killer, more people will die. Failure's not an option.
Focus, man. My money on my mind. Got a meal out the deal, and I'm still in the grind. Now, shorty says,
I'm literally dying to figure this out.
a girl from Wooded, they buy, and they ready to go.
Oh, hey, you're up.
I'm so done.
My flow, my show brought me to
I am on borrowed time here.
bought me all my fancy things.
What the?
My crib, my car, my clothes, my
All right, let's see what you got.
game up, and I ain't changed.
We're in crisis mode, Tree. Who's gonna pledge Kappa now that we have a death curse?
One day after the events of Happy Death Day, college student Ryan Fan wakes up in his car on September 19th. Returning to his dorm room, he walks in on his roommate Carter and Carter's girlfriend, Tree. Ryan resumes work on an experimental quantum reactor with fellow students Samar and Dre to slow down time. After Dean Bronson shuts down the project for causing several power outages and not producing practical applications so far, Ryan is murdered by someone dressed as a school mascot Babyface and wakes up again on the 19th. Tree explains her experience reliving September 18th, and she and Carter agree to help Ryan. They learn the reactor inadvertently created the loop. The masked killer tracks Ryan down, but Tree unmasks him to reveal another Ryan. The second one insists the original must die for the loop to close. Terrified, Ryan activates the reactor, releasing an energy pulse that knocks everyone unconscious. Tree wakes up in Carter's room on September 18th and relives her original time loop. But she soon realizes things are different after discovering that Carter is now dating Danielle. Ryan believes the reactor caused Tree to drift into another dimension. When she learns her mother is still alive in this new reality, she wants to stay. That night, Tree goes to the hospital to intercept serial killer John Toombs before he escapes, but she is confronted by a police officer. The killer kills the officer, and Tree runs into Lori at the elevator, realizing Lori is not the killer in this reality. Lori insists the killer cannot be Toombs, as she just took him in for surgery. The killer stabs Lori, then chases Tree to the roof, where she accidentally falls to her death. Waking at the beginning of her loop, Tree demands that Ryan and his team help her escape it, requiring they test dozens of algorithms. At Carter's suggestion, Tree serves as the group's recorder, killing herself at the end of each day so they can restart. Eventually, her injuries catch up with her, and she faints. Waking up in the hospital, Tree steals a gun to go after Toombs, only to find Lori already dead. He attacks disguised as Babyface, and Tree shoots him dead. However, a second Babyface killer appears, forcing Tree to kill herself and the killer. The group finally discovers the correct algorithm, but a technical issue forces a delay. Having to choose which reality she wants to be in when both time loops close, Tree decides to remain in this dimension. Carter urges Tree to consider the consequences of living a life that is not truly hers and states that her experience with grief helped who she is now. Tree hides from the killer in a hotel, but that evening, the news reports that Carter died trying to save Lori at the hospital. Tree kills herself by exploding a power station, deactivating the reactor so she can save Carter and Lori. The loop restarts and Tree decides to return to her own reality. She advises Lori to end her affair with her professor Gregory Butler, discovers that Danielle is cheating on Carter, and has a final conversation with her mom. Bronson confiscates the reactor before the group can activate it. Believing she is too weak to survive another loop, Tree insists they retrieve the device. They enlist Danielle to distract Bronson while they recover the reactor. As Ryan readies the device, Tree goes to the hospital to rescue Lori from Toombs, but is trapped by the second Babyface killer, revealed to be Dr. Butler trying to bury the evidence of his affair with Lori. His wife Stephanie appears and shoots Lori, revealing she is in league with her husband, but he betrays and kills her as well. In the ensuing confrontation, Tree outsmarts Butler and kills him. Laurie survives, and Tree and Carter kiss as the reactor activates, sending Tree back to her original dimension on September 19th. Later, Tree, Carter, Ryan, Samara, and Dre are escorted by agents to a DARPA laboratory where the reactor has been moved for further experimentation. As they need a test subject, Tree volunteers Danielle, who wakes up screaming in horror.
Beautifully read, my good sir. Couldn't have done better myself.
Yeah, I need to get in the audiobook business or something.
That's one of the things I was gonna ask you as you finish reading that is when we were recording the first one of the things you said was it's too bad that Danielle didn't get hers. Well, it turns out that she might have got hers at the end of this one.
Yeah, exactly. She got some kind of justice.
Yeah, and it's like if you do a third film, it's like, do we want to see Danielle go through all this? Because I thought she might have been, in this in this multiverse, in this different time, she might have become a better person because I hadn't seen this film in a while, and then it's revealed that she's cheating, and I was like, oh, well, I guess that ruins that for me.
Yeah, still, once a B word, always a B word, apparently.
Yep, she clearly is just a terrible person in all dimensions.
Just a matter of how she's terrible.
Exactly. How about I go ahead and run some numbers through for you?
Let's do it.
So Happy Death Day to You had a budget of $9 million and a box office return of about $64.5 million. So it had just about double the budget of the first one and made about half. So this film had for as fun as it is, it had a huge drop off, which is surprising.
Yeah, and that's still, in a vacuum, that's still a very good margin. If it had been some unique new Blumhouse movie and they dropped $9 million on it and made $64 million off of it, that's a really solid take from just theaters alone. You consider all the home market after that and all the ancillaries that a movie makes money from after theatrical, then that's a really, really good take. But relative to the first one, the studio executives only think in numbers like how exactly you put them, which is we spent twice as much money and made half as much money. So then they're thinking, well, on the next one, are we going to spend, 12 to $18 million and then make 30 or 40 million at the box office? And then you're getting into a realm where it's not deemed worth it. It's sort of like the Friday the 13th franchise. It's like profitability still happening, but you're starting to see scenarios where the money cost is maybe going up a little bit and the returns are going down a little bit, and you don't want those to kind of intersect in the wrong way. So it's one of those things where, they might not be convinced to take a chance on a third one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Friday the 13th because those dwindled. I mean, it took those 7-8 movies to dwindle, and it took this one sequel and 2 years later. So I don't know what people were expecting from this one, but I enjoyed it. I would, and again, I would like to see a third one. Probably never going to happen, but I would like to know what people were going into the theaters expecting to see if this film made half of what the first one did on double the budget.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of it is just might be that the first one was such kind of a fun concept that, what do you expect a sequel to do? Most people probably just expected it to either try to run the same thing back again, or maybe, be so different and be such a departure that it's kind of losing that charm of what's so fun about the first one. The loops of the first one kind of had this kind of engagement to them that by just one movie in with this one, it starts to feel a little old hat, and the multiverse wrinkle is a way to keep it fresh, but it doesn't have quite as much, it's like they tried to make a more fun movie, but it's still not quite as fun as the first one.
Yeah, I could see that. I can agree with that. I'll rattle off some more numbers for you here. The ratings stayed relatively close from the first one to this one. This is rated a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a 72% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 57% rating on Metacritic, and 68% of Google users liked this film. So, I mean, all in all, those are relatively right around the first film's ratings. And then we have, I believe, the exact same death or kill count, including the 8 times that Tree dies. There are a total of 20 deaths in this film, averaging out to 1 death every 5 minutes flat.
And I think the first movie was a death every 4 or so minutes. And, maybe that's the cardinal sin. They didn't up the kill count from the original. Maybe that's, maybe you got to be going harder and more wild than the first one. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there was I believe the first one was every like 4.8 minutes. So I mean, if you add like 2 or 3 kills to this movie, all right, you're beating the
Yeah.
first one. But
And obviously that's still, every 5 minutes is still a pretty good ratio,
yeah, I think a lot of them, kind of like the first one, are half of them are in that montage. A 10-minute
Yeah.
montage of Tree dying and whatnot. But still some fun deaths in here that we'll get to talk about once we get there.
100%.
I didn't find very many like behind the scenes or fun facts on this film. I have 4 of them for you, so we'll end up going through these pretty quick. My first fun fact for you here is to urgently cut the power, Tree drives to the power plant, hitting the generator at exactly 88 miles per hour in another nod to the Back to the Future films.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I like how the first one had the little bit on Groundhog Day, and then this one's kind of making jokes and quips about Back to the Future. That's a fun one.
My next one for you here is Jessica Ross said her favorite death in the movie was falling out of the plane in a bikini without a parachute and landing in front of Carter and Danielle. And this death was not part of the original film and was added during reshoots.
That's certainly an eye-catching one. That's certainly a fun one. It almost got my favorite.
It's just it shows that they were having fun with this film and that she enjoys playing this character. You can tell.
Yeah, for sure. You want something over the top and wild. If you have to find a way to kill yourself in a constant loop, you're gonna try and come up with some pretty inventive things to do.
The wood chipper seen midway through the movie belongs to Biff's tree removal service, and this is a reference to the character Biff Tannen from the Back to the Future 1985 trilogy.
I noticed that.
I was wondering, and then
Yeah.
it's his famous line, "Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?" And then in addition, this is also a pun on the name of the lead character, Tree, who is removed by the wood chipper.
That's excellent. That's excellent. That's a really fun one. I didn't point out in the first one how weird of a name Tree was for a main character. And I don't know if they mentioned in the first one, but in this one you find out that her name is Teresa. So like I guess Tree as a short for that, but it reminded me of something that it just seems to happen in the horror genre a little bit. Like I think the first 2 Final Destination movies have a character named Clear, not Claire. It's Clear. Like her name is like Clear Rivers or something. And it's like, it's like, I don't know what it is with horror writers that they just want to come up with these like kind of oddball names that aren't really traditional.
Yeah, it's something different. And I mean, I like kind of like when characters have like those different names. It's not just a normal like Ben or Mike or Tom or Danielle in this one or Chris or sorry.
Yeah, my name's not generic. Damn it! No. I know what you mean though. I know what you mean.
Yeah, like
shout out to Wrong Turn. Main character's named Chris in that one. Good movie.
One day we will have to do it on here because that's
at least the first 2. At least the first 2, if not,
100% agree with you. My last one for you here, like I said, I do not have a lot of fun facts. I wish I could have found more. Is regarding the possibility of a third film, writer and director Christopher Landon has stated that he definitely has an idea for the third movie in his head, while producer Jason Blum has said that if enough people see this film, we're going to make a third movie. We want to make a third movie. In March of 2019, following the film's less than projected box office gross, Blum said a third film was not very likely, but not impossible. And in an interview with Screen Rant in February 2023, Landon confirmed he had pitched a third film to the studios.
Well, if he pitched it in 2023 and we're sitting in early 25 right now, and there is no official announcement of Happy Death Day 3, So I think we're not likely to get the third film. They'll reboot it in 10 or 15 years.
Yep, we'll get a rated R version, and Rob Zombie will come out and do something stupid, and I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, go even more sci-fi. Happy Death Day 3000,
Right, and then Happy Death Day for you.
Happy Death Day forever.
There you go. See? We need to be in those writers' rooms.
Yeah, we've got this thing's evergreen. It'll never go away.
That is all I have for you on the fun facts for this film, though. Cruising right along. Chris, did you have a favorite character in this film? I know you did. Let's see if we differ from the first one.
Yeah, I actually went with Ryan because he was basically a nothing character, a bit part in the first one, and being elevated to main character status for here, he was the most fresh element of this movie as far as the characters go. So I actually went with Ryan, and I like that he's kind of like this scientist or whiz kid trying to do these experiments. It's kind of all happening because of him in the first place, and then he's trying to be very involved in solving the problem. So he actually came away as my favorite character in this one.
I do not have a problem with that whatsoever. Ryan is fun, and I mean, I his stupid quote. I got sick of hearing it in the first one, and dude, did you hit that fine vagina or whatever?
Fine vagina. It's iconic at this point.
It is. We've heard it 12 times in the first film, and he's just fun. He doesn't know what to expect, and he's just like there's a quote that's said, and I'm pretty sure you didn't pick this as your favorite quote or most memorable line, so I'll just go ahead and spoil that. It's when they're all sitting around together, and Tree's telling him like, "Now you're stuck in this day. Congrats, and you're gonna die again and again." And he's like, "Dude, Carter, tell your girlfriend to stop trying to scare me." He's just like he's like the nerdy like scientist kid who he has no idea what he's got into, but he caused all of this.
And he has the good line where he's like, "It's like a dream within a dream, like Inception." It's like everyone loves that.
He's not the one I chose though. I struggled between three. I kept going between Ryan, Carter, and Tree.
Okay.
And again, I must be a simp because I chose Tree again.
Your words, not mine, my friend.
That is 100% okay, because I know somebody out there is going to say, like, she wasn't the best character in this film. What a simp, or something like that.
That's okay. That's okay. Like in The Final Girl, there's never anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I like her arc again in this, where she's got to choose between choose between
her mom and Carter.
Yes.
And
I just fucking had a brain loss. I'm having a stroke over here.
It's all right. They put in one bikini skydive scene, and you're like, she's my favorite character.
No, but I chose her because of the arc they have and how she has to choose between Carter and her mom. Does she take a chance with Carter and seeing where that future goes, or does she keep her mom alive to where she doesn't have all the memories and part of the life with her mom is a life that she hasn't lived because it's in another dimension. So I like how this film kind of, it probably got people thinking okay, do I choose somebody I'm falling for, or do I choose my mom? I'm probably going to choose one of my parents. Because
well, and it's a little bit of a different thing. Obviously, if you're living your life and your parents and have known them and they're both alive, you wouldn't choose to have your parent die in exchange for a chance at love. But the situation that she's in is a little bit more different because it's oh, your mother died and you have the chance to have her back in your life, or the person you're choosing to be romantically entangled with. And then it's all the other aspects of it. Well, it's well, you're not going to have any of those fresh new memories that you missed. You just have her back now. And so it is a little bit of a dramatic struggle. It's kind of tough. It's kind of a tough one. It's you don't know if anything's going to work out. It's not like it's your husband of 20 years versus your mom who has passed away or something. It's college flings sometimes don't exactly pan out, but I get what they were going for. So,
Yeah, it could be 2 weeks later, after I choose to go the route of trying to find love and,
And they
my
get hit by a bus.
or or I find them in a different friend's dorm room or something.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
could turn
Oh,
out to be like a Danielle from the film.
yeah. I kept expecting for the supposedly better alternate world that she was in to have some kind of dark twist, like Carter or even her mother being the killer in this reality. I kept expecting something like kind of heavy like that, and they didn't really go for it.
Did you did you have a sense of the who the killer was in that alternate reality?
Well, they kept making a point to still show that the whole affair thing with the doctor was still happening, but the tree wasn't involved in it. So I'm like, huh. I'm like, they wouldn't be showing that if it weren't for a reason. So that was definitely on my suspect list for sure.
Okay. So on your sheet of paper, Gregory was on there.
Yeah, Doctor Dude. Yeah, definitely was on there.
Well, after character, I'll give you my favorite quote, and I kind of had like an A and B. One made me laugh, and like one kind of gave me a little smile. And the one that made me laugh was again at the beginning where Ryan's like, Carter, tell your girlfriend to stop trying to scare me. And Carter goes, oh, she's not my girlfriend. And Tree just kind of gives him this look. And he's like, wait, are you my girlfriend? And she goes, kinda. And that one, every time I laugh, just kind of, or every time I watch this, just gives me a little laugh. And just the look she gives him, like, dude, seriously? And then my other one I chose was Tree, where she kind of looks at Carter and she goes, I think it's time. I hope you realize I'm only going back for one reason. And clearly that reason is Carter. So I like we get not really a horror movie here, but a
Yeah.
sci-fi movie, but we still get a little bit of pulling at the heartstrings. So
Yeah,
I like
you're a
that.
big old softy. It's all right.
I'll admit
Uh,
it.
so for my favorite sort of dialogue exchange, it's between it's with Danielle, and she says, "I'm auditioning for this year's production of The Miracle Worker. Did you know Anne Frank was blind and deaf?" And he goes, Helen Keller? Excuse me? Anne Frank was in the attic. Oh, whatever. That I love that because I can't just the other week I had some employees at work who had a big confusion over which one was Anne Frank and which one was Helen Keller, and it was very funny. So I don't know why the just history works that way, but it was very fun to see a movie like acknowledge that people somehow get the two confused. You learn about both of them in middle school and high school, and then you just get the names swapped.
It is funny. That was another one of the things in the film that gave me a good laugh. So props to the film for that. And then Chris has it, he's having deja vu. He experienced it at work and now he's watching a movie with it.
Yeah, kind of wild.
Did you have a favorite scene or an
I,
A and B or an A, B, and
I
C?
I had one clear favorite scene, and it was the scene where Tree's having her final conversation with her mom. As much as I give you crap for being kind of like a sentimental guy, that scene was better and more emotionally impactful than it had any right to be, being in a movie like this, like Happy Death Day to You, this sort of multiverse time loop shenanigans movie. And you get this really, really powerful scene between a daughter and her mom who was dead in her world, and now she's back and she's trying to have this sort of goodbye without saying it's goodbye, and kind of have this get some advice from her mom about some decisions to make. And it's just, that's a wonderfully done scene for a film like this. Really kind of elevates it above its station.
Absolutely. I will give you credit for that one and I will call you a simp just like me. No.
a simp a simp for a touching, well written scene while they're over here loving the skydiving in the underwear.
What do you want from me? I'm a guy. No.
I know, we're only men. We're only men.
Well, here we go with another emotional simp scene for you. I got I kind of had an A and B, and my clear winner was where she's like giving the explanation to Carter when she's like, Carter, that's not fair. Like, I don't want to choose between you and my mom, but I have to. And he just kind of is like dumbfounded. He's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, and Tree goes, Carter, you and I are together, like in the other dimension, and you can just kind of see it on his face. Like as soon as she starts talking about like staying with her mom, he completely like 180s and is like, no, like maybe you should like give us a like pretty much give us a try and like take this chance and like he gives her like every reason to why she should like leave the dimension where her mom is alive and go back and give them a chance. And
Yeah.
so like even in this other dimension, it almost kind of like nods and makes it clear that Carter wants Tree.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, 100%.
So that was the my clear winner, and then I wanted to give another nod to the death montage again. You know where she's
Yeah,
dying and she gets electrocuted in the tub and she wakes up and her hair's all over and where she runs through the tree wood chipper and all that.
yeah,
All that's fun.
that's a great sequence. Yep.
So what did you have?
So yeah, I kind of cheated. So for death, it is very much that montage, but specifically, the wood chipper was my favorite death. The whole, it's almost the skydive. The skydive's kind of more visually like it's more of a show off moment, a special effects thing, but the wood chipper one, it's like you see the wood chipper and then she just runs at it full speed, face first, and you get the blood blasting out of there. That's just a good old fashioned, like a wood chipper death is just like a very violent, like I can't imagine something more like outside of like slowly being melted or set on fire. I can't imagine something that just feels so violently painful than getting put into a wood chipper and dying that way.
And that scene is probably the little bit of blood we get in this film. There's not a whole lot in here.
No, there is not. So I mean, I gotta shout out to the one violent death we get.
That was one of the ones. Again, I kind of had like a runner up. That was my runner up. And I mean, I wanted to since we're talking about that, I wanted to ask: have you seen the remake to Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I have not. I have not seen the original nor the remake.
Okay, there's a you were just talking about like how like horrible that would be, and there's a scene in that where a girl gets put feet first into a wood chipper. So I
Oh, feet first would be even even more worse.
yeah
I mean, because then you're just like slowly getting killed. If
yeah. At
you're gonna
least in
get put
this
into a
one,
wood
she
chipper,
kind
you
of
at least want to go head down so that you're dead initially. Or fast.
yeah. In this one, at least she kind of dives right in, and after her head hits, you're not gonna feel any of it. And even, I mean, even in these films, I mean, her deaths aren't really. I feel like she feels the after effect. Once like all the scar tissue and stuff, like when she goes to the hospital again, and but
Yeah,
other than that, I don't think the deaths in these films she really feels them too much, or that the
yeah.
film lets on.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, like, if she was concerned about the kind of punishment she was going through on the loops, you have to wonder, like, why wouldn't she have just chosen like some kind of like poison or lethal injection type of thing each time, like something that was like as physically not demanding as possible each time she killed herself. You'd think that'd be the logic, but then we wouldn't have all of those flashy deaths to enjoy.
Exactly. So speaking of like the deaths, the one I ended up going with was the bathtub electrocution, just because it's in the montage. It's very quick. She drops the hair dryer in and gets electrocuted for a split second, and she wakes up in Carter's bed with her hair just a mess, a frizzy mess all over the place, and it's smoking. And I just love that after effect of her waking up in Carter's bed looking like that. That
Yeah, and
absolutely gave me a
she
good
gives
laugh.
him she gives him the wink, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that absolutely was my favorite death. It was
Mhm.
there's not a lot because of how many times Tree dies. There's not a lot to choose from in these
Mhm.
films that are like stand out really good. So the wood chipper and then the electrocution, I think those are two good ones from this one.
Agreed.
So that's all I have for you on the favorites category. Before we get into any final thoughts or comparisons or anything, is there anything else you have on Happy Death Day to you?
No, I think it's a for as much as it's similar to the first one, it is a pretty different kind of movie. Uh, I'm not sure if most people would prefer this one to the first one. I think generally it's not as much of a fun surprise as the first one is, but it is more of the same kind of good time, more of the same characters, more of the similar kind of shenanigans. So while being a little bit of a run back with the same thing, it's also a pretty, they spin it into a pretty fresh direction in my opinion. So it's a solid sequel for sure. Not some huge drop off, not some, oh my gosh, that one's great, this one sucks. Nothing like that.
So when it comes to preference, you probably are with me and prefer the first one.
I prefer the first one for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I'll give you some final thoughts on Happy Death Day to you. I mean, it's a fun sequel. It's definitely not something that when you're used to these horror films, or I don't know if you could really call this a slasher film, murder mystery more type, I guess. And you go into these and there's so many films from the past that have just redone what the original did because the original film was so successful. So okay, it's like take that base plot and stuff of the film, add in a couple new characters, couple new cool kills, and just go that route. This one doesn't do that. It adds a little sci-fi element. It adds again, it does add some more characters and stuff, but they're fun. All the characters in these two films are fun. And I mean, this would be if you're having like a movie night or something, these two as a back-to-back double feature would probably be a phenomenal, little 3.5 hours to watch with friends, grab some popcorn, order a pizza, whatever. But I recommend both of these films. I have fun with them. And I think it would be great to watch as a double feature if you're having a movie night or having friends over.
Oh, 100%. For 100%. This is a good little two part shenanigans, Like I said, week 1 of October is where you drop stuff like this.
Start out the spooky month on a little bit lighter tone.
Yeah, exactly. Or I guess after you're burned out, you want to end with something like these, but I think you want to end with the stronger horror vibe. So you start off more of the horror comedy,
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that one.
you know.
This film, as we have discussed, did not have a sequel yet. It did have a sequel in production, but it is rumored that a third film is no longer happening. So, on our next episode of Chills and Thrills, Chris and I will be transitioning to a little bit more on the comedy side. We had some horror comedy and black comedy in these two films, but we're going straight for the throat here, and we're gonna start next Monday looking at Ace Ventura: Pet Detective on our next episode. So that will be fun because I haven't seen that movie in a long time, and Jim Carrey is one of my favorite actors. So that should be fun.
Likewise, that was an often watched VHS, never owned on DVD or Blu-ray. Probably have not seen that movie in at least 10 or 15 years, probably even longer than that. And as a kid, I was always watching the second one on VHS a lot more than the first one. So it will be a fun little trip back in time to watch that one.
Absolutely. So we will get that one, and we will follow that one up with Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. So that'll be a fun 2 weeks to do something a little different. We've done the monster flicks with Godzilla and Kong. We've done some horror with Friday the 13th, Jaws. We've done Trick or Treat and Happy Death Days with some horror comedy, and now we're going straight for the comedy. So we're getting a little more diverse here on Chills and Thrills.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get out of here, Chris, on this one, I'll say thank you. I hope you enjoyed this second one because I knew you said you hadn't seen it, so I hope you enjoyed this
Yeah,
one and had a
it
good
was
time.
definitely a fun watch. Definitely a fun watch. I don't have a strong I'm set in my ways, so I don't usually go out of my way to try movies that I'm unsure of, or that I don't know, or that I don't have a good sense of, to just like go out and like try a new movie on a whim that I haven't seen. I kind of know what I like, know what I don't like, and I otherwise probably wouldn't have ever gotten around to checking out this one. So I'm glad I did. I'm not sure if I'm in a rush to watch it again, but it was a fun time for sure.
Once in a week is enough for you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm buying the Happy Death Day to You 4K set and putting them in my collection or anything like that, but they are not bad movies by any means.
Absolutely. But again, I will say thank you to you as always. Thanks to anyone who's out there listening. We do have Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, on our next episode, so until next time.
This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, we have breaking news in the Happy Death Day films. At a screening of the first two films, they were showing a back-to-back. Jessica Roth, star of the two films, has confirmed that the long-awaited third installment is moving forward. And I looked this up on like Bloody Disgusting and like 3 or 4 other sites, and it was confirmed by director Christopher Landon, who helmed the first two films, as they were appearing as part of the double feature for the films. Roth had this to say. She was quoted saying, "The third movie is moving forward," and then Landon, the director of the first two installments, also confirmed her statement with the following, saying, "It is moving forward." So, Chris, what do you think of our little news tip here just a couple days ago?
Well, it's honestly nice to hear because it kind of ends with this promise of more, and so you never want any franchise to kind of end with this like, well, what could have been the next thing? You know, sometimes you watch a franchise that has a few too many entries, and you're just like, they should have stopped this 3 movies ago. But I think there was still maybe a little bit more juice to squeeze out of this concept, and it could be interesting in that, you know, the first and second one, despite being kind of the same, were pretty distinct. So maybe they've got a hook that the third one would be another flavor, another kind of genre, another kind of spin on the concept. So you end up with 3 movies that are sort of about the same thing and about the same characters and storyline, but 3 movies that manage to be very kind of different. You have like the slasher movie, and then more of this kind of, I don't want to call it an adventure, but more of like a comedy sci-fi plot, race against time kind of thing. And then maybe the third one, there's a new wrinkle they can add in and do something fresh and unique, and that would be nice to see.
Well, it's funny that while we were like recording this episode, it was literally we were talking about how it's been 6 years, 7 years almost. They haven't made a third one. They're probably not going to make one by now.
Yeah,
And literally like
yeah.
an hour later,
Exactly. What were our exact words? Well, if they haven't announced one by now, it's probably not going to happen. And then within a day, I think that same day they announced it. So I mean, there you go.
Yeah, and it's like you said, there is a lot they could do with a third one. The second one left us with like them, they got taken to some, unknown place by DARPA, and they had Sissy. So what's going to happen with Sissy, and what's going to
Yeah.
happen with Danielle's character being trapped in the loop now, or being used in the experiment? And then like, where's Tree going to go? And are we going to have Carter back and Ryan? And
Mhm.
like, what are they going to bring to this third one? There's a lot to answer, like you said, that the second one kind of left us on a little cliffhanger.
Yeah, and you wonder, will they kind of try to figure a way to regress it back into being more of a horror slasher film, which doesn't seem like it would make sense, but maybe if there's a push to keep the budget down and a push to say, hey, the first one worked, why'd you try and go so Back to the Future with the second one? Maybe just try to get it back to basics. It'll be very interesting in how they do it. You don't know what parameters they were able to say, okay, we're going to go forward with the third one. Was it like on the promise of something more like the first one, which financially worked better, or is it on the hook of like, hey, there's a new take for the third one, it's the third direction that we're going in, and it just has a lot of promise, and they think that it can be pulled off and do well. Maybe the studios are kind of like, there were strikes in 2023, some movies been flopping, maybe the studios and production companies were looking through the files and saying like, hey, what franchises do we have that are kind of new, kind of recent, kind of within the last 10 years that we can maybe exploit a little bit? How much of a purely commercial and financial decision was it versus creative? It'll be very telling to see how it goes, but it could be something that completes the trilogy in a really, really satisfying way, or continues the franchise in a satisfying way, or it's going to really put that nail in and say like, hey, the first one should have been a one and done. So we'll see.
Yeah, me being the nerd I am, so like as soon as it was announced, like when I messaged you, I was like, all right. I clicked on like all like the horror movie websites that I could, and then like I on Facebook, I was like over the last couple days, I've been looking and seeing what like people have been commenting on, like, oh, Happy Death Day 3 moving forward. And I can't really find like on Facebook, these things have hundreds of comments, and 99% of them are, oh, can't wait, love the first two, or where are they going to take this one? So like, I mean, there's fans of these first two films out there for sure. And I mean, clearly the fans of these two films is why they've decided to move forward with this third one. And I mean, we said that the budget of the first film was like 4.5, 5 million, and it made 120 some million. And the budget of the second one was around like 9 million, and it made, I believe it was like 60 some odd million, or around 60. So I mean, if you get this third film and say you have a 10 or 12 million dollar budget, and you can make 60, 70, 80 million dollars and complete the trilogy, that might warrant a fourth film down the road, or you might be happy with where this third one ends, and like you said, it might bomb, and it just be like, yep, we took a chance on it, and it didn't do what we wanted it to do, so that's the end of the trilogy. So it's almost like, do you take this third film and like go all out with it, or do you end it with another cliffhanger to see if the fans kind of clamor for more? Like there's a lot to see coming up here, as the days go by.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of I don't think anyone should count their chickens before they hatch and do cliffhanger endings to movies that don't have guaranteed sequels, because then you never know when's going to be that last one that doesn't get a sequel. Plus, like, look no further than like the Millennium series for Godzilla, where like every movie ended with a cliffhanger and pretty much none of them got sequels, and that was very annoying. Um, so, I'm in favor of like, hey, you get one more, like conclude the story in a kind of satisfying way. If you're gonna do a sequel hook, make it exclusive to like a post credit scene. Make it at least end satisfyingly with the movie itself. I'm interested in seeing what trick they're gonna pull with the Universal Studios logo this time. But I mean, it's a you can't blame them for making this decision, because even if they bring this one in at like $10 million and it makes 30 million, that's still a profitable movie. That's still a movie that packaged with the first two onto streaming services, onto the video on demand, onto the digital downloads, onto the Blu-ray discs. It's gonna be trickle down. Like, even like I said, even if they spend 10 million on it and it makes 30 million in theaters, that's still millions of trickle down revenue that it will add back into the coffers of what they made off the first two movies and what they make off of this movie and off of the trilogy as a whole. So it's like you can't go wrong with these movies that are so low budget. You almost can't go wrong with them. If you make a movie for less than 20 million, it's hard to really lose your rear end on it, just on math.
Yeah, and I could agree with you there. Like, I would not be upset if they took this third film and like made it like balls to the wall, and like closed up, tied in every knot, closed all the loopholes, and then if we get like a post credit scene of like the quantum like sissy like activating or doing something wild, in a post credit scene, just to see, because again, if this film bombs, you end everything in a good way, and if it does phenomenal at the box office, then you give yourself that little opening just in case. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Why not? See where they can go. I hope they don't try and sell us once again of things happening all within the same day. You can do that when you make a sequel that comes out like a year and a half later, and you were very quick about it. But you're talking like by the time this thing comes out, it's going to be like a decade. Don't still be trying to convince me that these people are all still in the same week of their lives when they're all 10 years older. Don't pull that trick. Put in a time gap. Put in a time gap or something, or build it in. Like, don't convince me that these people that were college aged in 2018 are still college aged 10 years later.
Well, director Christopher Landon, this is one of the quotes he did have to say. It's a short one, but he said that the third film is said to be different than the other two films completely. So like not in the same day,
Okay.
not in the same
All right.
like, so it'll be
We
a
can only
different
hope then.
project.
Okay, then. So they're going to go even more wild with it. Who knows? Who knows?
I did want
Maybe
to
the
Yeah, I did want to see what you thought of this. previous thoughts for the project again included the working title "Happy Death Day to Us," but they were going to do a potential Peacock miniseries for the third film that would have consisted of like I believe it was 3 episodes that were like 45 to 50 minutes long each. So that would have been something
Hmm.
different.
That would have been interesting. So maybe it'll be a scenario where we have multiple trees from multiple branching timelines, hence it would make her name kind of like a pun since she's from like branches of trees of different timelines. Maybe there's more than one iteration that gets to come together, and so it becomes about this whole like save the multiverse thing or unifying the timeline over again. Like something tells me with a name like Happy Death Day to Us, it would be something like that. So we will have to see. Give one of them an eye patch and give one of them blue hair and, one of them a peg leg and, just to differentiate all the different trees.
Well, Jessica Roth, the actress who plays Tree, she was quoted saying this, although this was back in 2020, just after the second film had been released. She was quoted saying, "I would love if we had the opportunity to complete the trilogy. I know that Chris has it all mapped out in his genius brain, but I also know that we only want to complete it if we get to do it right. I think it's just a question of seeing if the opportunity for that exists in the world." And then she continued with, "But the funny thing is, I have a feeling whether it's now or in 5 years or 10 or 20, if we pull a Jamie Lee Curtis from Halloween and Tree comes back as a badass 50-year-old, I know that we will get to tell the rest of the story." She said, "I love Tree. I love that character so much, and I feel very, very grateful to have been a part of that." So she's all on board for a third film.
Okay. Yeah, I say why not? Why? It sounds like those they're all saying the right kind of things. Different from the first two, finishing the story, closing out the trilogy. I say yeah, let them have their shot. Let them finish it off, and if it's a flop, whatever, it doesn't matter. At least the story got told, and it is what it is. Like just go for it. Like the more I'm hearing, the more I'm kind of glad that they're giving it a go.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we can only assume that it's in the earliest stages. We haven't heard anything if he's been working on a script or anything. I'm sure they have to have something, but this is the first time that we've been given any sort of like a green light or like heard of anything that this is moving forward since around 2020 2021 when Christopher Landon said that he like 100% wanted to give it a go. So I'm on board. I'd be willing, give it a long process, take your time with it. I mean, if it comes out in 2028 and it's a kick-ass movie, it's worth the wait. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, if we can get 6 Paranormal Activity movies and a whole universe of Conjuring movies and spin-offs, we can afford to have a third Happy Death Day and it won't ruin anyone's day.
Yeah, we can get 7 Saw movies in 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think, gosh, they're heading toward 11 or 12 of those altogether. I don't know, who knows, but yeah, when they stop being really great after like the first 3, but
That is okay with me. But
yeah.
that is all I have on from what it looks like. The early working title is Happy Death Day to Us. We'll see if that sticks. So that is some breaking news that I am happy to hear in the horror community. And it seems like from what I've seen that everyone that I've read from comments is happy that they're moving forward with it as well.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Well, I appreciate you joining me on this little breaking news clip it for since we did the first 2, so we might as well share our opinions on the third one.
What are you talking about? This was all one recording session. We didn't break this up and come back another day. Totally didn't do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
There's don't think about how the sausage was made.
So what do you want for a third film? Is there a conclusion or anything you're looking for the third film?
I don't know. You
It's
don't know
kinda
how
hard to
dramatic. Yeah, you don't know how dramatic they're gonna do it. You feel like maybe there's a sort of a if it gets to be some multiversal shenanigans with multiple trees and things like that, you wonder if they're gonna try and push something of she must sacrifice herself to save the timeline, the universe, reality. You wonder if they're gonna go in that kind of direction. You want to up the stakes and things like that. It will be interesting to see if that's where they go with it. But I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, if it's totally different from the first 2, it's just hard to kind of picture exactly where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we can sit and ponder some ideas and just keep clicking on the websites that are giving us our little information at a time, kind of do some
Yeah.
digging and see what we're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the dramatic ending of like, I'm tired of starting over, I'm gonna die for real this time. At least it's gonna matter. Whatever, whatever, whatever. You can see that scene playing out, as she jumps into some portal or vaporizer or who knows what.
She's got to take her own life to save Carter and their kids or something
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. And then you think you have a resolved ending, and then the post credit scene, she wakes back up at the start of the beginning of the day again.
Of the first movie.
She's caught in an endless loop that must be repeated forever. That way it's like you get your happy ending, but if you dare to stay for the end credits, you get the brutal twist where it goes on forever.
Chris and he likes his twist. Don't let him fool you. But all right, I'll say thank you again for joining me. Just a fun little conversation and information on the third and hopefully soon to be very good upcoming Happy Death Day 3 film. So again, we have Ace Ventura on our next episode. So thanks, Chris, for joining me. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
That's not fair. You have no idea how hard this is for me. I don't want to have to choose between you and my mom, but I have to.
What do you mean choose?
Carter, we're together in the other dimension. I woke up in your bed every morning, just like this morning. I did it over and over and over again until I fell in love with you.